Hello there, friends. This is Spencer Michaud, and this is your weekly forecast for the week of August 5th through August 11th. We have some really interesting aspects this week. A little overview for the week. We're going to be talking about the crescent moon phase, the first quarter moon phase, a series of trines from the Sun and Venus to Jupiter, which is going to be a nice little bonus this week, and a couple planets switching directions. We got Jupiter that's stationing direct and Uranus that's stationing retrograde. So that's pretty much what we're going to be talking about today. I'm also going to go over a little bit of the Leo ruled decans, or the 3 10-degree sections of Leo, and talk about some of the cards associated with that, since we're in the middle of Leo season and it's always fun to learn something new. All right, so let's get to it. I'm first going to give you a little bit of the essential dignities report for the week. I'm doing this kind of thing every week where we're talking about what condition the planets are in. If you've been following along on my channel, we like to talk about a planet birthing its significations through the sign as a temple or a birth channel. So what happens is the planet represents certain things in the abstraction. So like Venus would be harmony, love, cleanliness, ritual, where the sun would be have the meaning of issuing commandments, authority, whereas Mars would be the action essence. So we're having all of those planets are manifesting those abstract significations, and they take on kind of the mantle of the sign that they're in. And of course, each sign is hosted or ruled by a planet. So we're going to see a little bit of a difference between the expression of that planetary influence when it goes through a particular sign. And in the ancient Hellenistic system, they were talking about a planet was stronger or weaker, or more or less able to bring about the things that it signified based on the type of sign that it was in and its relationship with its host. So this is why we go over essential dignities. And essential dignities, of course, are sign-based, where accidental dignities were based on houses and aspects. So the first thing that we have this week is we have the sun. It's still in the sign of Leo. And that, of course, is the sun's home domicile. That is the temple that it rules or hosts. And the sun is very powerful in the sign of Leo. So this is something where our ability to issue commands, our ability to take authority in our life, our ability to illuminate others through our self-expression, are all enhanced over when the sun is in Leo. So this is a good time to like figure out questions of identity, who you want to be, what kind of ways that you exercise authority in your life, and what kind of leadership qualities that you may be able to put forth in whatever area of your life that Leo is very prominent. It's important to look at your chart and look at the house that Leo is ruling, and that is a particular area of your life that you may be able to have an enhanced sense of authority in this current astrological climate. The other thing that the sun is doing, or the other type of dignity that the sun has right now, is called triplicity. And the triplicity rulers they alternate in the day and the nighttime. And the ancient authors kind of compared this to having the wind in your sails. They were associated with the directional winds. And Demetri George also associates these with having the support of your community. So very interesting. The sun has kind of a double dignity right now. He has dignity by domicile and then dignity by triplicity during the day. One of the things I've been experimenting with is, does the planet, get more or less dignified just, in a transit by day? Is the sun going to be more powerful by day? And I think the answer is yes, especially since the sun is of the diurnal sect and it's going to have its most power. It makes logical sense that the sun would have more power during the day. So some of the solar actions that you might want to be taking, or the exercising your authority, may be more effective in the daytime than it would be in the nighttime with the sun in this position. All right, moving along. We have a couple other planets that are in their own home signs as well. Of course, Jupiter's been hanging out in Sagittarius for quite a while now. It's been retrograde in motion for the last few months here, and it's about to station direct on the 11th, which is this Sunday coming up. So that's exciting. But Jupiter's still very strong, and retrograde benefics still aren't necessarily bad or anything. I don't think you can make a benefic planet into a malefic planet. Just maybe that there may be some reevaluations that have been going on in that Jupiterian area of your life, Sagittarius in particular. So look at the house that has Sagittarius on its cusp, and that is where you may be experiencing some good fortune, but also you're kind of trying to figure out what the next step is and moving forward. And you're probably going to get a big boost in that area of your life this week, because when a planet, a superior planet, that is one that is outside of the orbit of the sun, that would be Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, when they are making their direct station, that is generally happening at the inferior trine. Okay, so this is, you can kind of see when a planet's about to go retrograde or about to go direct with the superior outer planets, when they're making a trine to the sun. So Jupiter is going to be making a condition called phasis. And phasis is kind of an important point in the synodic cycle, or the relationship of that planet to the sun. And they represent kind of these peak moments where it's important for us to pay attention, because the planet is speaking a little bit louder than it would otherwise. So really pay attention to what's going on over the coming weekend in the Jupiterian area of your life. Beyond being in its own home sign and being able to do Jupiter things like being able to confirm others, being able to bring expansion and abundance in an area of your life, to bring growth. Jupiter was also associated with children, so there may be some things associated with the children or the childlike energy in your life. Jupiter was the judge. Where Mercury is the lawyer in the cosmic courtroom, Jupiter is the judge and making judgments. So your particular judgment may be enhanced with Jupiter in this sign, and with it going direct pretty soon. The other dignity that Jupiter has is also a triplicity, but this time by night, because the sun is the triplicity ruler of the fire signs by day, and Jupiter is the triplicity ruler by night. So that's kind of how triplicity works. We have a daytime ruler and a nighttime ruler, and then this participating, cooperating ruler that we'll get into at a later point for each of the elements. So there is a day and a night ruler for the fire, earth, water, and air signs. And so Jupiter's very strong right now as well, and about to get even more in better shape coming up. So if you're doing all your Jupiterian business, get it done in the next few months before Jupiter moves into Capricorn, where it loses dignity and moves into its fall. And that is not a happy place for Jupiter, because Jupiter is trying to act within the domicile of Saturn, and they have very, very different energies, and they are there's a little bit of conflict that happens where Jupiter is expansion and busting through the limits and the boundaries. Jupiter or Saturn is the one that is, saying no. Jupiter wants to say yes very badly, and Saturn loves to say no, but sometimes that no is healthy. So get the yeses out there for the next few months, and starting Sunday, they're really going to be supported very strongly. Of course, Saturn is also in his own home sign of Capricorn, his feminine expression, the nighttime Saturn, basically, where a lot of the structure that we're experiencing is an internal structure, or an internal restructuring. Whereas when Saturn is in his masculine or diurnal sign of Aquarius, there is a little bit more of an externalization of that restructuring process. So we see a lot of wanting to change the rules or create boundaries and structures within society when Saturn is in Aquarius, versus being very internal about it with Saturn in Capricorn. But the good news is that we are able to have a lot of internal mental discipline with Saturn in Capricorn, and we're able to kind of, there's an interesting balance going on right now And I think Gary Caton, another friend of mine who's a very good astrologer, was pointing out that Saturn and Jupiter have a condition called anticia right now, where they are sort of like secretly kind of conjunct, or I can't remember if it was a counter anticia or an anticia. Counter anticia is like a secret opposition, and anticia is like a secret conjunction. So there's a relationship that expansion and limitation quality is playing in your life. I think really the key is balance. Is it's expanding, but within a certain defined set of limitations that you have in your life. And I think that can actually be really liberating. When we're able to have growth within a certain set of parameters, it makes it so that it's not as chaotic. It gives it a little bit of structure. I found that as a musician, having some structures to work within is actually very, very liberating and very, very healing within the musical world. It's like if you're in a band and you're saying, well, we're gonna jam, but it's gonna be in this key, and it's gonna be for this amount of measures, and it's going to be at this tempo. And without those structures, you have, I guess you have some very progressive jazz, which if that's your thing, that's fine. But I think that you can make some really cool things within those limitations of like key, tempo, and measure. So think about that. Think about the music that you're creating within your life. Music can be a metaphor for whatever that you're doing within your life. So that is the dignities. The only other dignity that we're really seeing is Mars is going to be in its own decan towards the end of the week here. If it's not already, we'll take a look at the chart here in a second. And that gives Mars a little bit of an extra oomph to do more action-orientated things. Of course, Mars is the separating quality. It is called the lesser malefic. It has a cutting and severing quality. It has when it's functioning properly, it has a defending and a courageous property as well. So especially in the sign of Leo, it's going to be defending its turf. And I'll show you the card that's associated with that, which is echoing that theme. The moon has a few dignities this week. The moon is going to be moving into the sign of Scorpio, which is its fall or its depression. And that is a point where it's at the bottom of the wheel of fortune. It's, the lunar significations are not super well supported when the moon is in Scorpio. And then towards the end of the week, we're going to have the moon in its exile in Capricorn, which it does have an interesting little kind of balancing mechanism there, because it does gain triplicity in the evening. So if you are doing lunar things when the moon goes into Capricorn, again, it's probably going to be better to do them at night. So those are the dignities according to Dorotheus. Those are our Dorotheus triplicity rulers, if you were wondering. Let's take a look at the chart here. Actually, before I do that, I want to give you a little bit of a tarot lesson first. Let's do the tarots, and then we'll dive into the chart and look at it together. So this week we've got the sun moving through the second decan of Leo. So that's 10 degrees Leo through 20 degrees Leo, and I believe, let's see, let's look at the chart just real quick here, just so we're getting all our ducks in a row. So you can see that the sun is at 12 degrees Leo in my chart for Monday. And Mars and also Venus is moving into the second decan. So we've got the sun and Venus moving through this second Jupiter-ruled decan. So each of the 10-degree decanic sections have a planetary ruler as well. So it's kind of like they're working with that planet to bring about the things that they represent, just like they would if they were in domicile or other dignities, okay? So we are going to be working with second decan Leo and third decan Leo, with Mars being in that sign as well. I was going to show you a little bit about Sagittarius 2 today as well, because Jupiter is a real big theme this week, and Jupiter is moving through the second decan of Sagittarius. So let me stop my share for a minute here so you can see all these cards a little better. And if you're following along on the audio only, I'll describe the images that I'm seeing. And I'm going to show you just kind of the progression of the different 3 Leo-ruled cards here. Of course, we've talked in the past on the 5 of Wands. Of course, all the Leo decan cards are going to be Wands, because that is associated with the element of fire, okay? And each sign has 3 cards associated with it, and you'll start to notice patterns if you want to start studying the tarot. All of the fixed signs are numbers 5 through 8. All of the, well, let's go in order. The cardinal signs are cards 2, 3, and 4 in each of the different cardinal signs. The fixed signs are 5, 6, and 7 in each of the fixed signs. And the mutable signs are 8, 9, and 10. So you can kind of start to get a little bit of an organizational structure to that. So what we're working with today is 5, 6, and 7 of wands. And here in the first decan, we saw a group of young gentlemen kind of vying for the spotlight. And we talked about this a little bit last week. So if you want to get a more in-depth kind of exploration of the 5 of wands, take a look at the videos I have in my YouTube channel. And so this is about kind of struggling for the spotlight, struggling for dominance, for asserting leadership and authority. And here we see in the second decan, which is the Jupiter-ruled ones. This is a Saturn-ruled decan here, the first decan. And then the second decan here is Jupiter-ruled. And here we see a figure. This card was called Victory. So somebody won, okay? One of these dudes here won the battle and is riding back victorious with a crown of laurels here. This is what Austin Coppock calls this card, a crown of laurels. And it looks like he's got the support of the people he was, vying for dominance with. It's like they're celebrating him, say, you're the victory, you've won, okay? So there may be an area of your life right now where you are experiencing some success. And it's okay to celebrate the success that you've experienced after working very hard to establish yourself and your identity. Leo is all about establishing an identity, I think, especially with the sun, and being able to assert authority in a very, hopefully, in a healthy way. So this is something that we'll be working with Venus too. Venus is going to be under the auspices of the second decan of Leo also. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The second decan is about celebrating who you are and your identity and getting recognition for that. So you've been vying for it, but now you may receive some of the recognition that is due. Okay. The other thing to think about with that is it's about authenticity. When we are merging the inner spiritual fire with the sphere of action, we are going to be having an authentic expression. So when you are marrying your ability to get in touch with your true higher self and being able to act from that center rather than from putting on some sort of mask. Okay, this one was associated with masks. And this is about maybe taking off the mask and finally getting to the real core of who you are and your being. And that really helps to boost your integrity. Okay, authenticity, integrity go hand in hand. And this is where you're going to really gain the real respect, is when you're expressing yourself from the actual truth of who you are rather than trying to be what people want you to be. Okay, so I think that's a real good theme for this week, is be yourself. And don't be afraid to be who you are. And I think that you will get much more, you'll get further just being a true expression of who you are than trying to put on some sort of mask and fake the funk. You remember Shaquille O'Neal in the 90s? He's like, don't fake the funk on a nasty dunk. For all of you 90s basketball fans out there, I know that the audience will be limited on this channel for that, but check them out. Shaq has all sorts of good one-liners. The last decan that we see of Leo is the 7 of wands. And this is where we see a figure who has established himself. And now people are starting to come for his position and he has to defend his turf. So it's like, oh, you've established your authority. You've found that you have the support of your community for that authority. But now people may be trying to usurp your position. And Mars is going to be in this position this week. So there may be a little bit of that kind of creeping into the fore as well. This is a Mars-ruled decan, though. So the good news is that you are able to, I think, Mars already being associated with defense and with courage and with the ability to take action your ability to defend who you are and how you express yourself is going to be enhanced. That being said, don't get too hung up on your intellectual or egoic position that you get into unnecessary conflicts about defending your turf and who you are. If you make sure that what you are defending is worth defending. There are some fights that are worth fighting, and there are other fights that are just needless drama. So see if you can discern between the two of those things this week. There's going to be some really nice positive testimonies from Jupiter coming in this week too. So there's probably this week ahead looks pretty good, pretty nice, pretty easy compared to some other weeks we've been going through. Although I will say this, Mercury is going to be moving through the last stages of Cancer as it moves forward. And another dignity that we haven't discussed a ton is called bounds and boundaries. And that's a fivefold division of a sign that has another planetary ruler. I know it's a lot of rulers to keep straight. There's a lot of voices in the room of a cosmic courtroom, right? If we consider it like a Congress, right? There's a lot of opinions that have to be taken into account. And the interesting thing about the last bound degrees of Mercury is that it's Saturn ruled. And this is true for most of the planets. Well, for all of the planets, is that the final degrees of a sign are ruled by either Mars or Saturn, which are the two malefics. So there may be some difficulty when a sign is, or a planet is moving through the last stages of a sign. That's why we see that there's a little bit of, conflict that comes up generally when we have a planet moving through that. It might not be as easy or as smooth as some of the other degrees of that sign. So keep an eye on that. That means that our communications may take on a little bit of a serious tone, and we may be starting to communicate some of the limits and boundaries that we have in our life, because it's Saturn. We're going to be communicating sort of the Saturnian section of that Cancerian sign. So it may be limits and boundaries that you may feel within the family, within the domestic sphere, within whatever group that you have a shared sense of roots or purpose with. So that may be something that comes up this week as well. Okay. Let's move on to the chart. What do you say? Okay. I've got my screen up here, and we are looking at Monday, August 5th. And the beginning of our week, we like to talk about the phase that the moon is in. We talk about any of the major aspects and conditions that the planets are having. And then we like to do a little tour of the aspects that the moon is making throughout the week. And the first couple things we notice in our chart here is that the moon is in a crescent phase. So here we have the distance between the sun and the moon being 45 degrees to 90 degrees ahead of the sun, and that is called the crescent phase. And that's the phase right after the new moon, where we get the new impulses and the new triggers for whatever the themes are that we're going to be working through for the next moon cycle. And that happens from 0 to 45 degrees in the eightfold system. There are different divisions of how we think about moon cycles, but this is an eightfold one that Dane Rudhyar and Demetra George have popularized. And this crescent phase is when we've gotten the new impulse and we are starting to figure out how to mobilize the resources necessary to bring whatever we've been inspired to do into reality. So the theme that we talk about is the process of overcoming inertia. So the first couple days of this week are going to be about struggling away from the inertia of the new start, mobilizing the resources to move in a forward direction, and finding perseverance and focus. And that's something that was going to be supported by this Libra moon, because we're going to have a nice little sextile. And of course, sextiles are of the nature of Venus. So that is Venus as a supportive, the lesser benefic. So we're going to have a nice supportive aspect between the moon and the sun and all of the other planets in Leo for the beginning of the week here. So this may be a time where partnership takes some precedence. It may be a time to find win-win situations in the new project that you may be starting, or the new the new area of life that has been given that energetic impulse from the new moon cycle. And that's going to be the beginning of our week. Now, a couple conditions I want to make you aware of before we move forward is Venus is going to be very close to the sun. She is moving into her Cazimi, which is her conjunction with the sun on the 14th of August, so in about a week or so. And while she is close to the sun, she has a condition called being under the beams or combust. And that is a little bit of a weakening of the planet. That's when this planet is within 15 degrees of the sun and on either side. And when we get too close to the king, the ancient authors thought that he got kind of angry. It's like, you can sit at the table with the king, but you need to keep your distance, you can't get too close to the authority figure. It gets too hot and you get burned. So Venus is having a little bit of trouble right now being under the beams. Her significations are hidden. So if we were to go out at night and try to look in the sky, we wouldn't be able to see Venus in the night sky, and she wouldn't be visible under those sunbeams in the very early morning hours. So if you can see here, this is around dawn, and when the sun's rising, it's totally blocking out the light of Venus and also the light of Mars. So we have a combustion for both Venus and Mars. So all of these Venus-Mars kind of things are going on behind the scenes. So if you're trying to bring Venus things out into the open, if you're trying to take action with Venus-ruled areas of your life right now, which include harmonization, which include aesthetics, balance, creating beauty, they may need some time. They may be cooking in the soup needs to simmer a little bit longer. And it may be that you're doing these things behind the scenes. And I think if you let go of the frustration of having to have everything come out into the open, you're going to work with this energy a lot easier. And Mars is in the mix here too. So Mars is kind of bringing some heat to the table. It's accentuating our need to take authority, to be independent, to express who we are. And it may trigger some questions of pride along the way too. I think it's important that when you are working through Leo issues, that it's important not to get too haughty about it. It's not important not to get too attached to your own viewpoint. It's important to express yourself and to be special. And Leo placements want to be selective and special. But I think the true essence of leadership is serving your community and the people that you are in leadership of. And always the best kings were the benevolent kings that took the community that they were serving into account. The despots, the ones that were the very tyrannical kings, were the ones that were self-serving. And I think that's something really important to keep in mind this week is, are you going to be the tyrannical, self-serving type of leader, or are you going to be the benevolent king who is always thinking about how your leadership is going to be in service of a grander ideal? And that grander ideal can be humble. It doesn't have to be like this big grandiose thing, but it should be service-based is what I think. This is something that whenever we tell people this, you're telling this to yourself too. I'm a Leo ascendant. So, I mean, I can get a little puffed up a little every once in a while, and then the universe will keep knocking me down a peg, and I have to recognize that what I'm doing and shining my light is in service of some greater good and greater ideal. And that's a universal theme that we're all kind of working through now. All right. So that's one of the conditions that we're seeing. The other condition is Venus is said to be in a condition of cholasis with the sun, and that's when it's within 3 degrees. And that's a technical term that talks about bonding and merging. So Venus and the sun they're really tight right now. They're merging. Our identity is very wrapped up in our Venusian desire to create beauty and harmony within the world. So those two things are married right now. They are in the throes of passion, so to speak. So keep that in mind. And the Cazimi moment for Mars is going to be happening in early September. So we're getting a new Mars cycle that's going to be coming pretty soon too. Now here's one really cool thing. I've been kind of studying this, and forgive me if I make a mistake, but the superior planets make a conjunction from this direction, okay, in the clockwise primary motion. So you can see that Mars is kind of moving into its conjunction from kind of that evening star position, right? And these inferior planets, those that are inside the orbit of the sun, Mercury and Venus, they make two types of conjunctions, an inferior and a superior conjunction, which means they will come from a zodiacal direction here and from the primary motion when they are retrograde. So what we're seeing now is Venus is direct in motion, so she is going to be making a superior conjunction. And if I'm not mistaken, this is sort of like a full moon type of phase in the process of the synodic cycle of Venus. She would be completely reborn in the inferior conjunction if she was moving retrograde. Now, we did see that recently with Mercury. Mercury made its inferior conjunction. I know these are technical terms, but it makes a difference. And Mercury was reborn, and now we've got baby Mercury that's moving away from the sun and growing in strength and growing up into a fine young lad for this cycle. And Venus is kind of we've got kind of a strong, mature Venus right now that is going to be making this conjunction and kind of hearkening back to when she made her last inferior conjunction, which I believe that was the last retrograde when Venus was in Scorpio in November. Don't hold me to that. You can look it up. I should probably have looked it up. But I think that was when the beginning of this particular cycle happened. So keep your eyes out for themes that harken back to that fall time when the beginning of the cycle happened. You may see a full moon type of energy happening with that. All right. And the interesting dichotomy with that is that Mars is going to be making its inferior conjunction in direct motion. So Mars is direct, but this actually is the beginning of the Mars cycle because there is no retrograde of Mars where it makes a conjunction with the sun. When Mars goes retrograde, Mars is over here somewhere. It goes retrograde. It's still moving in this direction, okay? So that's what we see with Jupiter. When Jupiter was over here, okay, it started retrograding, and then it still is going in this direction. And that's some sort of scientific trick. I can't explain all the science behind it, but I can see it in the chart, and that's the most important thing for me as an astrologer. If you're more scientifically inclined, put a comment down there in the box for me and help me out. But what you could see here is that at the first trine, the planet went retrograde. And now, like Jupiter is going to be going direct at the second trine. And as it moves forward forward here, it's going to be making its superior. So many different ways to describe this. We've got inferior conjunctions of superior planets, right? I think that's what we've got here with Mars is an inferior conjunction, or just the conjunction, because we're not really differentiating, okay, of a superior planet, which is Mars, and it is going to be being reborn in the sign of Virgo. So we're going to get a really interesting boost in the Virgo area of our chart and actions that we can take in the Virgo ruled sphere. So take a look at where Virgo is in your chart and prepare yourself for a new beginning. I happen to have this in my second house, finances, so maybe I will prepare to make some more money in September. One can only hope. Or mobilize resources towards, figuring out how to support yourself a little better. And just, to give you a little heads up, I've got a class that I'm planning out right now where I'm designing a game-based class that I'm going to be offering in the fall. just a little sneak peek with that, where it's very interactive. I want to do an interactive class where we learn traditional astrology through interacting with one another and doing a little astro drama and taking on the roles of the planets and then communicating like we're in our own cosmic courtroom, and really embodying the energy of the planet. And that's something that's still in development. I'm working on that, and it should be offered pretty soon, so keep your eyes peeled for that. I think it may be an in-person class first, but if you are interested in that and you want me to develop it for an offering online, let me know in the comment section below, and I will get to work on it. I'd really like to respond to the needs of my milieu, so to speak, and it's really nice getting feedback from all of you to know what you think would be good. I've noticed at these astrology conferences that I've been going to that when we created opportunities for interaction, that created a really positive vibe with the astrological community. And a lot of the best memories that I think I made and a lot of my colleagues made were when we played this game at the Glock conference, Cards Against Astrology. It was a lot of fun. I think a lot of times when we're learning, we get talked at quite a bit. And I want to balance that out. There are plenty of good things where you can watch a video and take a class and read a book. And I, of course, want to incorporate that into what I do. But I also want to have that kind of human interaction with you. And that's just something we're losing a little bit of as we move forward. We even interact online, and the human quality is sort of lacking a little bit. And anytime we can incorporate that back into our life, I think it's going to feel very balancing, refreshing, and fulfilling. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Back to the forecast. Shameless plug over, okay? But circling back around to my point is that is an example of Mars right now getting ready to be reborn with its conjunction with the sun. So there may be something like that in the Virgo area of your life that will help you to make a new start at the beginning of September. So I think it's important for the last few weeks of August here is really get your ducks in a row. Get prepared to be able to take action out in the world and be prepared for a new detailed type of earthy practical offering, okay? And that is going to look very different for different people, but it's all going to be happening within that sphere of the beginning stages of the sign of Virgo. Okay, so that is the conditions of the planets. Let's start taking a look at the aspects that we're experiencing. All right, so Monday is looking like a fairly decent beginning of the day. We've got a series of supportive sextiles, which are of the nature of Venus, in the morning. So the moon is going to be making a sextile to Venus, the sun, and retrograde Jupiter very early in the morning for Venus. You know, a little bit kind of at the beginning of our coffee break in the morning, not break, but just our morning coffee at about 6:30. It's going to be sextiling to the sun. And then at about 9:30 a.m. Eastern time, it's going to be making a sextile to retrograde Jupiter. So the morning may be a time to gather support, to get your friends mobilized and get them excited for the projects that you're working on, and try to figure out how to have the morning will be supported for having conversations that you need to communicate and reach out for help. If you need help, I would say do it in the morning of the 5th. Towards the afternoon, as we get a little bit later in the day, the moon is going to be making a square to retrograde Saturn. It's going to be making a square to Pluto in the evening. And then very late in the evening, it's going to be making a sextile to Mars. So as we go through the day, it may be a little bit more challenging. You may come across some of the limitations. You know, if I annotate this here in my chart, you can see that the moon is going to be making this sextile here, all right, to all the Leo planets as we move forward. And you can see it's going to hit at 10 degrees, 12 degrees, and 21 degrees later in the day, right? And then it's going to be making this sextile in this direction to Jupiter. And then we're going to see the square as we move forward to 15 degrees to Saturn, and then the square to Pluto later in the day. Yeah, every joint venture, every project that you need help with is going to come across some challenges. So I think that the advice I like to give during the Libra new moon, or the Libra moon cycles in general, is use your ability to communicate in a harmonious way. Try to create win-win situations. Try to see the other person's perspective and put your good listening ears on. If you want help, you have to be able to listen to the advice that is given to you. So try not to be too stubborn about it, and open yourself up to receive. I think that's a really good way to think about this particular beginning of the week moon cycle. Is you need, if you want the good stuff in life, you gotta, you don't have to be an island. A lot of the times Leos and Leo energy planets and people who have Leo placements think they have to do everything themselves. And I'm very guilty of this. It's hard, sometimes hard for me to open up to help. And you can make things harder for yourself if you do that. And if you are attached to only your own ideas. And, like, I ran into an artist at a festival that I was working this weekend that did some astrologically themed work, and really talented artist, and might be looking forward to some sort of collaboration with her. And I think that when you team up with people, if it's the right type of relationship and the energy is good between you, you can achieve far more than you could by yourself. And I think that's one of the things to keep in mind at the beginning of the week. Okay. As we move into Tuesday, let's move into Tuesday here. I'm going to go forward a day. Okay, now we're at Tuesday, and we're going to be still in our crescent phase of the moon, but the moon is going to be moving out of the sign of Libra and into Scorpio. And that's really the biggest thing of the day. We've got a couple challenging aspects that the moon is making. Very, very early in the morning, 3:36 a.m., the moon is going to be squaring Mercury at 25 degrees of Cancer and Libra. So, I mean, I'm probably going to be sleeping at this time, but if you're in a different time zone, there may be a little bit of a challenging conversation that comes up. Remember, Mercury is in the bounds of Saturn right now. So there may be some limitations that you have to discuss with whoever you're teaming up with, and there may be some details that may be a little bit difficult to parse out. But this is a very brief transit, and anytime the moon is making a transit, doesn't generally last very long. These are more like hiccups along the path. Whereas when we have a slower moving planet, of course, the moon moves very quickly. When we have a slower moving planet, then we can feel that a lot longer, and the influence is more of a slow burn, whereas these are some quick hits that may be just little events that crop up throughout the day. So after the moon moves into Scorpio, it's going to be making an opposition at 6 degrees, okay, at about 10:55 p.m. It's going to be making opposition with Uranus, or Uranus, or Uranus, or however you want to say it. And of course, oppositions are of the nature of Saturn, whereas the squares are of the nature of Mars. See how Mars is like a quick hitter? Those squares are like quick hitters here. This is a little bit of a slower burn. But of course, it's not going to last too long. But anytime we're getting Uranus triggered in the chart, we got questions of how we are dealing with our resources and dealing with the practical, growth-orientated systems within our life, with Uranus being in Taurus right now. So there may be some sort of conflict that you run into with how you are managing your resources. Scorpio is about merging and sharing resources, so there may be a conflict that comes up with who has what and who owns this, who owns that. There may be a little bit of a challenge in the Scorpio and Taurus axis of your chart. Okay, there may be a little bit of a push and a pull, like in this Leo chart that we have. There may be some action going on in your home life and your domestic sphere that is making it a little bit challenging to take action out in the world, and in the public sphere, which would be the 10th house here in this particular Leo chart. And this would be true for like your, oh, I don't know, 5th house versus 11th house. If you were, if this was happening over the sign of the Cancer Capricorn axis, then you'd see this conflict between the groups that you are part of and the wanting to self-express. Okay. And eventually, if I hear enough feedback on it, I will try to do an individualized rising sign horoscope briefly, or you can schedule a reading with me and stuff like that. If there's any feedback on subscription-based services too, I've seen a lot of astrologers out there saying, "Here, I'm going to give you this free thing, like this hour-and-a-half video that I do for free," and then they do a little bit more in-depth thing via subscription-based thing. And I'm kicking around that idea too. As astrologers, we're trying to make a living doing this too, and it is nice to feel that financial support too. Instagram likes and sharing is also very appreciated, but us astrologers got bills to pay too. So, but trying to find the best way to do that, and the way that works the best for your clients and customers as well. I think that, like hearing that feedback as to what type of models people will be willing to support is always welcome. So leave me a comment on what you think about that. So that's going to be our Tuesday. Of course, the moon, when it moves into Scorpio, is losing a little bit of dignity. It's going to be in a position called its fall, okay? Fall, or its depression. And this was thought of as fall. Being at the bottom of the totem pole here, or at the bottom of the Wheel of Fortune. Let's say this chart here that I'm looking at is the Wheel of Fortune, and it keeps continuing to spin. And sometimes you are at the top and you are honored in a place of esteem, and then you're here in a place of equality, perhaps. And here you're at the bottom of the totem pole, or you're at the bottom of the wheel that keeps on spinning, and you may not be getting the respect that you deserve. You may not be able to take action out in the world with autonomy or things like that. And that's where our moon is for Tuesday and Wednesday, maybe moving into Thursday. There may be some difficulty either with your body. The moon rules the body. There may be some physical complaints that come up with that. There may be some challenges within your domestic sphere that make it a little bit difficult. There may be things that are hearkening back to the Leo ruled area of your chart, because of course Scorpio is ruled by Mars and hosted by Mars. So there's a connection between what Mars is doing in your chart and where the moon is with the moon in Scorpio. So think about that. Recognize that when a planet is in its fall, there's nowhere to go but up. So you may be at the bottom of the wheel right now, but it'll pass. This too shall pass. And there are always opportunities to humble ourselves gracefully and to figure out that, it's not always, we don't always have to be on top. And that's healthy. If all we do is win every single day, all I do is win. We may get a little bit of an unrealistic perspective and think that that's just the way it's going to be every single day and all the time. And I just don't think that is the case. I think winning sometimes is great. And I enjoy a metaphorical win, so to speak. But life is about wins and losses. It's about growth and decay. It's about cycles. And if you really take that seriously and take that into account, you're going to navigate your life much more gracefully. Think of the down cycles as an opportunity to go internal, to reconnect with your spirit, to release things that need to be released so that you are freed up for the next cycle of growth. We just have a real problem as human beings with the cycles of decay. I think especially in Western civilization, we've gotten to a point in our history where we're about grow. And I'm here to tell you with my astrologer brain that we have pushed the limits of our growth, I think, as a planet, as a society, as a human species. I do think that this is a time of consolidation, of decay, and of releasing some things so that we can have a healthy new start. And that doesn't mean that it's just all decay and destruction all the time. It just means that we have to balance out releasing and letting go if we want to keep the metaphorical nutrients in the soil, so to speak. We're seeing this all over the world where we're planting crops over and over and over again. We're not letting the earth rest. We're not letting the weeds grow. Here's the thing: when weeds grow and they go back to the earth, they add nutrients to the soil. If we're weeding everything out, we're trying to make everything this, like, efficient, productive, let's just grow crops 24/7, 365 days a year, that soil never gets to rest. And the product that you get out of it is much less able to sustain you. And I think that this is something that we have to really kind of, as a human species, start to come to terms with, is that we got to get okay with letting go of things every once in a while. And that, sometimes we are in a cycle of growth and sometimes we're in a cycle of decay. And it's not bad. It's not evil. It's not always fun. But I like Marie Kondo, I like her vibe on this is like, make it a magical spiritual practice to let go of stuff. Bless the things that you're letting go of. Make it ritualized, and so that it's not like this, oh, what am I losing? It's like, no, what am I clearing the decks for that new start? And be grateful for that period of release, because really there's liberation in that. Okay. Soapbox over. Like every once in a while, I'll get up there and be like, hey, spirit children, like, mommy's got a message for you. Like, sorry. I'm still figuring this stuff out. So if something pops into my brain now, I'm going to share it. The filters are a little bit off. The gloves are off, right? So that's Wednesday. Well, as we move into Wednesday, we're still experiencing that Scorpio moon, and we're going to be moving into the first quarter phase. And the first quarter phase is when we have the moon is 90 to 135 degrees ahead of the sun. So you could see here, we've got a 230-degree section, so it's just 60 degrees, right? We've got 15 degrees here, which is, what? Let me do some math in my brain. 75 degrees, and then we got, add 10 to that, it's about 85. And as the moon moves through Scorpio, it's going to hit that 90-degree, okay, point, which, if you're familiar with aspects, that's the square. Okay, so at the first quarter, we're experiencing a square between the sun and the moon, and that is a crisis point. That's, of course, of the nature of Mars. And first quarter moon phases are about getting some feedback on the things that you're trying to mobilize and potentially running into a challenge. And what are you going to do to get past that challenge? There's a heroic energy associated with the first quarter moon phase, according to Demetra George's book, Astrology and the Authentic Self. How are you going to be the hero and defend your turf, or put your energy out there and help bring into being, into form, that which is begging to be born? The birthing process is not always easy. There are labor pains. I think that the first quarter moon phase and the square are kind of the labor pains of bringing things into being. If it was easy, we wouldn't get the satisfaction of victory in the end, right? So again, it's easier if you welcome the challenges and say, this is just part of the journey. This is just part of the cycle. So what we are doing, I think with the moon in Scorpio, we may have a little bit of a crisis associated with the urge to merge with others and to team up and to be bonded, and the independent spirit. So there may be a little bit of like independence versus codependent type of questions that come up with this. And, you know, are you going to team up with somebody? Are you going to have support on your project? And it may be that where you may run into some difficulties with that, because, you know, the Leo Scorpio dynamic, it's a challenging one. I've had some experience with Leo Scorpio stuff, and here's what happens. If there is a conflict, the Scorpionic presence wants not just an apology, but a complete groveling surrender. The Leo presence, or the Leo placement, is, I will get on my knees for no one. And I've already said sorry with my nose up in the air, and that's it. It was done. And so there's like this pride that gets triggered. So this is a really, it's a little bit of a dangerous position for both, because the Leo's pride can get engaged, and the Scorpionic kind of, you know, I don't know, the vengeance of Scorpio can be triggered with that. And you know, Scorpio wants depth, and it wants an ability to go to the core of things, and it doesn't appreciate like Leo's kind of like, you know, loud, boisterous, bombastic, commanding type of thing. So just be aware of that kind of dynamic that could come up. And if you get in an argument, try not to go to either one of those extremes. Try not to get so fixed in your pride position that you aren't able to acknowledge a mistake, and try not to get too wrapped up in someone else's mistake that you demand that they completely humiliate themselves in front of you, because that's not really supported very well right now. Accept an apology and move on. Okay. That's the healthiest thing at this point. Don't brood over it. Don't get too attached to your anger, or to your hurt, or to your emotional wound. Okay. We're going to see a trine from the Sun to Jupiter at 3:31 a.m. This is fun. All right. So we have, beyond that square between the Moon and the Sun, the positive aspect of the day is this beautiful Sun-Jupiter trine at about 14 degrees of the fire signs there. And of course, we talked about this earlier. Jupiter is about to turn direct. Whenever you see a superior planet, Saturn, Jupiter, or Mars, making a trine to the Sun, it's either about to go retrograde or about to turn direct. And this is a very important position. This is 120 degrees behind the Sun, where there may be some sort of Jupiterian type appearance that happens in your life. There may be some really good news may start coming to you, or something related to expansion in your life. This is a positive appearance, I think. And yes, we have this square between the Sun and the Moon, but we've got some real nice support for the Leo part of it from Jupiter. Of course, the Moon and Jupiter at this point are in a condition of aversion, so I would say it'd be much better supported for shining your light out there, rather than trying to get somebody to, like, you know, apologize to you if they wronged you. You know, I think the way that I would handle this is totally my Leo rising speaking, though, because I'm biased, but become regal. Say, you know what? I'm just, if you're getting the Scorpionic part of you is getting triggered, you know, say, well, that's not working out for me, but I'm not going to stoop to the level of, you know, a low blow. Rise above it, transcend it, move along with your day, and learn to love yourself. And I think that will get you through this more difficult placement here. Okay. The Moon is also going to be making a sextile to Saturn and a trine to Neptune later on in the day. So there is a supportive aspect between the Moon and Saturn, a sextile here, and then it's going to be making this nice trine to Neptune at 18 degrees, okay? So we may come, you know, able to figure out what our boundaries are within these conversations that we're having, and then we may get into a little bit of a dreamy type of internal visionary state when the moon hits Neptune later on in the day. All right. On Thursday, the 8th, let's clear this up. Moving forward. Okay, Thursday, August 8th, the moon is going to be moving from Scorpio into Sagittarius in the late afternoon at about 4:30. So we still have that moon in the fall for the most of the day, but we're going to get a little bit of a reprieve from that heavier emotional energy. We may, come out of our funk. We may like stop brooding and say, you know what, I'm tired of ruminating on this old emotional junk. It's time to move forward. It's time to take a walk. It's time to just be a little bit more positive and have faith that the situation is going to work out. And we're still going through that first quarter phase. So it's going to be, we may be starting to figure out how to become the hero after we, experience the challenge. I want to give you a little anecdotal thing. I think that's interesting about the Leo Scorpio type of thing too. Yesterday, I had a really interesting aspect in my chart. Mars is my time lord, my Hellenistic time lord. It's activated. So I watched the transits of Mars for the year, from my birthday to my birthday. And Mars was exactly conjoining my ascendant and squaring my natal Uranus in the 4th house. So it was a 1st house, 4th house square, okay, with the Leo Scorpio axis, okay. And I'd done this like, I'd been out at this festival doing readings all day, and I'd been out in the sun, and I was kind of charged up, and I was like, been being Leo and social all day. And I came home to water my plant at home, okay. And I picked up it's a big peace lily plant, and it's got a big ceramic pot. And I picked it up by the edge of it, and I picked it up and the whole thing crumbled in my hand and just like spilled an enormous amount of soil everywhere, covered my books and things like that. So I was like, I was Marsing out, I was hulking out, and like it hit Uranus in the chart here and just exploded everything. And I had to clean up things that were in my house, and it was pretty funny. I thought it was, as I was doing it, it wasn't like I wasn't excited that I had to spend an hour cleaning this up, but I had to laugh at the astrology of it, of just this thing just exploding in my hand. I mean, it's not like it was looked like a pretty sturdy pot too, but a piece of it just broke off and the whole thing just exploded. So interesting little aspectual dynamic there of a time lord meeting up with a natal planet placement. So keep an eye on your Hellenistic time lords. And if you want more information about that, I'd be happy to look at your time lord for the year with a private reading. So on Thursday, we're going to be seeing that moon moving into Sagittarius over the course of the day. And we're going to see a sextile aspect to Pluto very, very early in the morning with the Scorpio moon to Pluto. The moon's going to be squaring Mars at about 5:16 a.m. on Thursday with Scorpio and Leo. Okay, so there's some early morning tension in that axis again, or whatever tension you've been experiencing with that square here is going to maybe come to a head too in the very early hours, and start moving past it throughout the day on Thursday, which is Jupiter's day. And then the moon is going to be making a nice trine to Mercury, okay, at 26 degrees of the water signs. And that, of course, is of the nature of Jupiter. So there may be a harmonious relationship between your ability to communicate your feelings and in the domestic sphere, and your ability to be courageous and be the protector type of person. So that's happening at 10:58 a.m. Eastern time. And then in the evening, we're going to be experiencing the second part of our beautiful trine energy to Jupiter. And this time, Venus takes her turn making a trine to Venus. This is actually, these are nice aspects this week. When you have the sun in its own home sign of Leo, making a nice trine, and then we have Venus making a trine to Jupiter. both benefics in play. The only problem I see with this is Venus is under the beams, so she's not in the greatest shape. So I think that one of the challenges with this is that your energy, your get up and go may not be super great. You may just want to like bask in the relaxing glory of a Venus Jupiter trine, where you just are. There may be a tendency towards a little bit of lethargy and laziness with this placement, where you just want to sit around and indulge yourself. And I'll allow a little bit of that. I'll allow it. I'll give you permission. Like, you need my permission for any of this. But what I would say is just be aware that you can overdo it with that connection. But this may also coincide with just some really nice energy with with the Venus ruled stuff in your chart, where it's getting a nice boost from Jupiter. That's going to be a pleasant kind of thing. This may be a nice time for, taking that late summer vacation and kind of relaxing and heading out to the beach or the forest or some kind of natural space and just soaking it in. Okay, this is a nice aspect for relaxation and just enjoying your life a little bit. Okay, because Lord knows that we've been experiencing enough trauma and turmoil over the summer. We need a little bit of a recharge before we get back to school and get back to work and do all these things that we're going to be doing when Virgo season hits. So take a little bit of time out, do something fun Thursday or through the weekend, and that may be supported this week as well. Okay, that perfects or becomes exact at a roughly 4:30 on Thursday evening. Let's see. Mars is going to be in his own bounds around that point and have dignity by face. So that's 2 dignities Mars is going to be having. And Mars is in its own boundaries or terms, according to the Egyptian system, from 24 degrees Leo to 30 degrees Leo. So that area, this final area of the zodiac, is going to be Mars ruled. And a bound ruler is like somebody who's setting the agenda or setting the rules. So Mars is kind of playing by his own rules right now. So the actions that you're able to take aren't going to be impeded by asking for permission really from anybody else. So it may be a great time to move forward with some of your plans too. So that's Thursday. Let's look at the weekend. Friday. On Friday, August 9th, Sun is in Moon is in Sagittarius, sitting at the table with Jupiter. Friday looks like a nice day. Oh my goodness. You've got the Moon making a conjunction with a stationing Jupiter, bringing about positive feelings and getting you jump started and feeling a little bit of excitement for that new start that you're going to make when Jupiter goes direct in like 2 days. And then the Moon is going to be trining Venus. So we've got a Venus trine and a conjunction with the greater benefic Jupiter. So this is like a benefic day. We're having the moon is making contacts with all this good stuff. The only challenge I guess I warned you against is just Mercury's still in the bounds of Saturn. So there's still maybe some challenging communication stuff, but you know what? That's one planet out of, many right now that are in this positive action orientated element of fire. And this is the only like watery placement here. We do have a little bit of earth stuff going on, but this sounds like a fairly pleasant day to me, depending on what's going on in your chart. But the general vibe is going to be positive. It's going to be harmonizing, and it will be, I think, a good time for a good time. Okay, as we move into Saturday, still experiencing the last vestiges of the first quarter phase of the moon. We're going to see the moon making a trine to the sun very early in the day. If I move forward again. Oops. No, I don't want to share that. No. Hold on. I lost my share. There we go. You can see it again, hopefully. We're going to see the trine happening from the moon to the sun. Another affirmation of that Leo commanding type of energy. Okay. And then we're going to see a square to Neptune very early in the morning at about 18 degrees of Pisces, when the moon moves to 18 degrees past that conjunction with Neptune and everything. Hold on. There we go. There's Saturday. You can see that the moon is starting to move past, and it's making that square. This is an aspect that we have been experiencing fairly regularly over the last few months, because, you know, at any time we hit either Gemini moon or Sagittarius moon, we're going to be seeing this square happening, where either our thoughts and our mindset may be coming into a contact with the illusionary qualities of Neptune, or our actions may be a little bit not rooted in reality. So just whenever the moon hits Neptune there, just be very careful that either you're not thinking too grandiose with the Gemini moon, or taking actions that will have you knocked out the next couple of days. This is like an aspect where you're like, yeah, let's go hiking. Let's go hiking for like 20 miles. And you're not used to hiking that much. And then you're sore for the next day and stuff like that, because you're just so enthusiastic about it, and you may not know what your limits are. Okay. In the evening, we have a trine with Mars. So the actions are going to be supported. You may, if you figure out what your limitations are and you can work within them, it's probably a decent afternoon to kind of go and do something. Whereas the sun is commanding action, Mars likes to take the action. As we move into Sunday, we're going to lose some dignity with the moon. Okay. All right. So for the last day, we see that the moon's moved into Capricorn, and it is now in a condition called exile, or it's what is the other one? It's debilitated. I had another word for it, but it's in its exile. It's detriment. There it is. Thank you, brain. It's detriment. So what does that mean? Well, the moon is in the sign of, or in the domicile or the temple, Saturn. And the moon is, of course, associated with being one of the lights, and Saturn is associated with darkness. So our light is kind of dimmed when the moon is in Capricorn. Cancer, the sign that the moon rules, is very nurturing, very growth orientated, very kind of, it's got some zigzaggy energy. It's falling to the whims of how it feels, whereas Capricorn is very up the mountain, one step at a time. It's a little bit detached, and it may not be functioning as well, because, you know, we're trying to do like nurturing, but we're like, okay, I've got a plan, I've got a structure it's got to work within. It's a little bit of the conditional love, and I think that sometimes that becomes an issue with Capricorn moon. I've had many clients in the past who had this natal placement, and they had mothers, which was associated with the moon, that kind of their love was conditional. They were not the most nurturing or warm mothers, and they had a lack of some of that unconditional love that they desired, and that makes it difficult for them as adults to sort of engage with that type of energy themselves. They can be very stern with themselves, and so that's something to keep an eye out for when we get into this Capricorn moon phase. Is try not to be too stern with either yourself or others, because your nurturing instincts might not be functioning at their highest potential at that point. The good news is that the moon is sitting at the table with its host, Saturn. So there may be a way where you can set some limits and boundaries within the domestic sphere, or within, you know, with your kids or something like that. And that will be supported on that day. Just don't be too much of a hard ass about it, I guess. So that's with the moon going into Capricorn. Of course, the moon does gain some dignity by triplicity in the evening, which means that it will have some communal support. So it may be a good time to reach out to your community, to set some boundaries and create some new structures within the groups that you're a part of, or you may have some wind in your sails with the Capricorn area of your chart, where you are helping to create some consensus around amongst your group or your support system. Now, what else is going on that day? A couple of really fun things. And here's our last things for the week. Thank you for sticking with me. I always appreciate it when you make it to an end of a video with me, because I tend to be long-winded. I like to kind of do the longer video instead of just doing a bunch of videos, a little bit pieces during the week. And I know that's probably not the way that people consume content these days, but this format sort of works better for me at this point. Maybe I'll change it up in the future, but thank you for listening as long as you do when you make it to the end of the videos with me. So here's a couple of things that are happening. The Jupiter is direct. You see that turn from red to black on my chart here? That is at roughly 9:38 a.m. Oh, it says 7:15. This is Monday. That's why I went forward a day. Sorry. At roughly 9:38 a.m. There we go. That says 10:15 here, but you get the idea. Jupiter is now direct. How happy day. So the greater benefic is going to be even more powerful than he would have been when he was retrograde. And of course, the retrograde versus direct motion of the planet is associated with primary and secondary motion in a chart. Primary motion being the diurnal motion going clockwise, and the secondary motion being zodiacal, moving through the signs. And when a planet is retrograde, it is kind of being swept along by the diurnal motion, which was associated with the sun and the divine, or the realm of the one. So this is kind of like when a planet is retrograde, it doesn't really have the power of its own will anymore. It has to submit to the divine will. Now, when it goes by zodiacal motion, it is kind of related to the realm of fortune and the lunar kind of motion. This is the realm of fortune, where things come into being and pass away. And it has more of its own will, its own planetary will. So Jupiter's will, now not being so subsumed by the divine will, is able to bring things into form. So we're going to see Jupiter things being able to manifest a lot easier in the realm of fortune, which is this realm that we live in, the earth, being human beings having a spiritual experience in a meat suit body. Okay, so we're going to see things associated with the Jupiter ruled areas of your chart, which is Sagittarius and Pisces, being able to manifest into form easier now that Jupiter is direct. And that is good news. Well, it is just news, I guess. As human beings, we're probably going to experience it as good, and we may enjoy it because we like good news rather than bad news. I just got done telling you, though, that sometimes the letting go and the more challenging, difficult things, it's an opportunity to build character and to set yourself up for the different cycle. But hey, we all like having some treats every once in a while, and Jupiter should be bringing you some decent stuff with its direct motion. The other thing that's happening, the moon is going to be trining Uranus at 6 degrees Capricorn to 6 degrees of Taurus. You can see that here. A positive testimony between the moon, the lady moon, and the disruptor and the innovator. I would call him more the innovator with this aspect, Uranus. So there, you may find some practical solutions to some problems that you've been going around that may be a little bit innovative in the process with that trine at 1:37 p.m. Oh, there is a couple other things that are happening this day too. Let's take a look. At 3:45 p.m., I don't even think I talked about this in my introduction today, but our little friend Mercury is changing signs to Leo. There he is. All right. Right around, 4-ish in the afternoon Eastern time. Mercury is leaving the temple of the moon, Cancer, and entering the domain of the sun, of the king. So Mercury is going to be gaining some heat, some fire, some solar energy, some vitality, right? And it's going to be moving into that 5 of Wands ruled decan, where you may be wanting to communicate your, authority. And this is something where we already experienced Mercury in this position a little bit earlier in the summer before it's retrograde. So we may be revisiting some of the areas of that we embraced in the beginning of the summer, but now from the perspective of having gone through a retrograde cycle where we were able to reevaluate a few things, to redo some stuff and make them hopefully better. And now we can move forward with some of the Leo stuff. Now, the cool thing about this, and this is something that I've been thinking about with astrology now after studying some Robert Schmidt things, is here is how this works in my brain now and in Schmidt's brain. Mercury is acting upon solar significations. So here's how this kind of works. The sun is offering up themes of authority, okay, of kingliness, of pride, of identity. And Mercury is going to be acting upon those significations with its essential nature. And the essential nature of Mercury is to communicate, to destabilize, okay? Mercury likes to contest. So there may be a little bit of destabilization of authority figures with Mercury moving into this sign, or you may be communicating your authority a little bit differently. You may be contesting with authority at some point with this position. You may be like the lawyer that's arguing with the king a little bit. Not always a great idea, because the king has power and the king is much stronger at this point. So be careful if you have conversations with authority figures that you don't get burned. Okay, that's important. And we might be seeing an ability to create commerce around our identity as well. So Mercury associated with commerce and with the merchants, we may be able to start bringing about an ability to commodify who we are and what our product is and what our vision is and what our solar light is with Mercury moving into the sign of Leo. So that's something to keep in mind with Mercury there. And Mercury is going to get a nice boost from Jupiter now, okay? Because it's coming into a whole sign trine. So that's good. Dig that. The only other issue that we have here really is that it's now going to be, Mercury is going to be squaring Uranus. So we may be popping off a little bit in unexpected ways in some of our conversations. So just be aware that those are the things that are activated now as Mercury moves into Leo. The other thing that's happening, and this is lots of Leo energy. We just raised the volume of the Leo energy. See, this is a big stellium here. We got 4 visible planets. Well, these 2 aren't technically visible right now, but they are called the 7 visible planets that are in Leo. 4 traditional planets in Leo. So the Leo energy is like very loud right now, okay? It's not a bad thing. It's just something to be aware of. And the last aspect of the week is Uranus moving retrograde. And this happens once a year, okay? You can see as we move through the day, now Uranus is going to turn red in my chart there at 6 degrees. So what does that mean? Well, it means that Uranus is coming to its closer to its trine with the sun and going and stationing retrograde. Since the Uranus is outside of the orbit of the sun, we are seeing it happen kind of near this Aries point, but the sun's going to be moving into Virgo, so that's kind of where the trine is happening here. It's close to that. It's not always exactly trine, or it's not always in the same element here. So what does Uranus being retrograde mean? Well, we may be reevaluating some of the changes that we have been initiating in the Taurus ruled area of our chart. There may be some changes start to slow down a little bit, and we we've been progressively trying to establish a whole new way of managing our resources, and it may really come across a period where you're starting to ask some questions on how that's actually going to function moving forward. And that is going to be retrograde until ding, 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 January 10th, 2020, which actually coincides exactly with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction at 22 degrees Capricorn. Interesting. So we're really reevaluating how we're going to be creating new changes in our life. And then when it moves forward again, it's going to be a big moment where we're moving forward with some of the Uranian impulses to change right when that Saturn-Pluto conjunction is going to be happening around 22 degrees Capricorn. So take the next few months or so to really see if the new changes and the new identities that you're crafting in the Taurus-ruled area of your chart are working. Be willing to make some changes around that. If things aren't working, course correct. So it's an opportunity. Retrograde planets are course corrections. Now, Uranus is moving in the divine will, though. So the other thing to do is, in that Taurus area of your chart, let go of the oars and float downstream. Stop paddling upstream. You're not going to get where you need to go in the Uranus-ruled area or the Taurus-ruled area of your chart at this point by just fighting against whatever the universe is bringing you. So the universe is going to bring you an opportunity to submit and surrender to events that may be unexpected, that will allow you to progressively make some changes that you'll be able to start implementing more effectively in the realm of fortune in the beginning of January. Okay, that's what I've got for this week. Looking ahead, we've got an Aquarius full moon on the 15th of August. We've got the sun doing her Venus doing her Cazimi conjunction with the sun earlier in that week. We've got Mercury squaring Uranus coming exact, and then Mars moving into Virgo. So those are the things that are ahead on the docket for the week ahead. And I hope that you are having a good, end of your summer here. This seems like a pretty decent week. It's probably one of the best weeks that we've experienced in the summer so far, with all the benefic activity. It's a good time for a good time. It's a good time to relax. It's a good time to kind of, find a new positive expression of yourself and the vision, and maybe start to take some inspired actions towards that end. So that's what I've got for today. Thank you for sticking it out, and please comment, subscribe, share, and I hope you have a great week ahead, and we'll see you the next time. Take care.